It's just past 7:30 across India. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. The entire team of Doordarshan wishes you a very happy and prosperous New Year. I am Tanvi Taneja. We will bring you all the day's big stories from across India and the world. With me today from London is my colleague, Julia Chapman. Happy New Year, Julia.
Happy New Year, Tanvi. It's 2 p.m. in London and 3 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Vladimir Putin accuses Ukraine of terrorism, peril continues in the Red Sea, and a surprise abdication in Europe. But first, the headlines.
Japan downgrades major tsunami warning after multiple earthquakes jolt north-central Japan. South Korea, North Korea and Russia too issue tsunami warnings. Russian President Vladimir Putin fumes after a series of Ukrainian missiles strike the Russian border city of Belgorod, killing 20 and injuring 111.
It was a deliberate strike against civilians. Of course, it's a terrorist attack. There is no other way to call it. Should we respond the same way? Of course we can.
Israel pulls out some troops from Gaza to shift to more targeted operations against Hamas. Iranian warship Alborz enters the Red Sea at a time of soaring tensions on the key shipping route. And India launches a satellite for research on X-ray emissions from celestial objects, including black holes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says a great start to 2024 thanks to the scientists. Japan has downgraded the major tsunami warning to a tsunami warning for the Noto region, although it has urged people to evacuate coastal areas after a series of strong earthquakes hit its western coastline. A powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 7.6 struck central Japan on Monday. The quake triggered warnings for residents to evacuate some areas on its west coast, knocking out power to thousands of homes and disrupting flights and rail services to the affected regions. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said that authorities are still assessing the extent of the damage and residents need to prepare for any more tremors in the region. The country's Chief Secretary Hayashi said that the extent of damage is being checked. He also asked citizens to be prepared for further earthquakes. The last time a major tsunami warning was issued in Japan was in 2011, when a devastating tsunami with a 30-foot wave hit after a 9.1 magnitude quake struck 230 miles northeast of Tokyo.
Following an earthquake, tremors measuring up to 7 on the Shindo scale struck the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa Prefecture at around 4:10 p.m.
Now, for more details on this tsunami warning, which has been downgraded from the major tsunami warning, we have our correspondent from Tokyo, Chris Gilbert.
The latest information is that the major tsunami warning that's been in place since the earthquake hit some hours ago has now been downgraded to a regular tsunami warning, if there is such a thing as a regular tsunami warning. But that means that the waves that have, been encountered along the coastline, the western coastline of that area, have been about between 50 centimeters to a meter. Now, the danger is not over yet. The evacuation warnings are still in place, but that is not the only peril here. The city of Wajima which was near the epicenter. It's a city of about 28,000 people. An enormous fire has broken out in the middle of that city, and it seems to be spreading very rapidly. Now, the fire services cannot immediately attend. The roads are all damaged and broken. The major highways are damaged and broken. It is very hard for emergency services to find and help people. At least 6 houses have been reported as officially collapsed. There may be many more. We do know that the hospitals are overflowing with people. There have been no reported fatalities yet, and the official casualty numbers are not out yet. But we do know that, the hospitals are taking in a lot of people while operating on backup generators.
So after this massive earthquake that struck central Japan early on Monday, Russia too has issued warnings for parts of Sakhalin Island's western coast and the mainland Primorsk and Khabarovsk regions. Russian authorities have advised anyone sailing in the local waters to urgently return to the shores. Meanwhile, North Korea and South Korea have also issued tsunami warnings for people living in their affected regions. So after this powerful 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit central Japan, followed by tsunami warnings, the Indian embassy in Japan set up an emergency control room, and it has issued emergency numbers and email IDs for those seeking assistance. These numbers are being flashed on your screen now. The Indian officials are in regular contact with the authorities and have requested people to follow all the instructions issued by the local government. Now on to Russia-Ukraine conflict now. Russian President Vladimir Putin today said that he's fuming after a series of Ukrainian missiles struck the Russian border city of Belgorod. My colleague Julia Chapman is in London. She gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Julia, Putin calling these strikes a terrorist act.
That's right, Tanvi. President Vladimir Putin called the attack on the southern Russian city of Belgorod over the weekend a terrorist act, which he said would not go unpunished, promising more strikes on Ukrainian targets. Putin said that Russia would continue to strike sensitive military targets in Ukraine. Russia also denied Western and Ukrainian accusations that it has been targeting civilian infrastructure as it steps up air attacks. The Ukrainian missile strikes on the Russian border city killed more than 20 people and injured over 100.
We too want to end the conflict as soon as possible, only on our terms. We have no desire to fight indefinitely, but we are not going to give up our positions either. You have fought, been wounded there, and so on. So we are not going to give up everything.
Putin's statement comes as both Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of carrying out attacks on New Year's Day. In the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk, officials said 4 people were killed and 14 others were injured in Ukrainian shelling on Monday. Meanwhile, Ukraine said at least 1 person was killed and 9 were injured in a Russian air attack on the port city of Odessa. Officials say Russia's air attack also targeted the Mykolaiv and Dnipro regions. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country had become stronger in overcoming serious difficulties as the war with Russia moves towards the end of its 2nd year.
Everyone has something to smile about because it worked out, and everyone has something to cry over because of losses. Each of us fought, worked, waited, helped, lived, and hoped this year in our own way. Everyone. But everyone will find something common to all Ukrainians this year. The major result of the year, its main achievement. Ukraine has become stronger. Ukrainians grew stronger.
Meanwhile, Russians missed out on their usual New Year fireworks on Moscow's Red Square and in many cities across the country as local authorities decided to save money and send it to the front lines in Ukraine. Some said the step was taken in solidarity with those who were killed in the attack on Saturday in the Belgorod region. DD India's Dasha Chernyshova reports from Moscow.
New Year celebrations in Russian cities have been scaled back, with fireworks cancelled and decorations not as lavish as they used to be. All the money saved from that will go to the needs of Russia's so-called special military operation in Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin, in his New Year address to the Russians, said that Moscow will have to go forward and create the future. The 4-minute-long video was first released in Kamchatka, that is first among Russia's regions to celebrate New Year. Putin's address was traditionally recorded in front of the Kremlin walls. The head of the country addressed Russians, the military and families of those fighting in the special military operation in Ukraine. Celebrations have been marred with the tragedy in Belgorod, where at least 24 people have died as a result of a Ukrainian strike against city center. Moscow said the West is complicit in what it described as an act of terrorism. Dasha Chernashova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
On to the Israel-Hamas conflict. The Israeli army on Monday claimed to have killed Hamas commander Adil Mizma, saying he took part in the Hamas attack on October 7th against Israel. The military also said that its troops had killed a Hamas fighter launching rockets in Khan Yunis in Gaza. In a statement on social media, Israel said its operations continued overnight, with naval forces attacking Hamas targets and continuing to support IDF ground troops in Gaza. This comes as Israel says it is withdrawing some forces from Gaza to shift to a more targeted operation against Hamas. Israel's military says the withdrawal is focused on reservists and is aimed at re-energizing the Israeli economy. Israeli military spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said that some reservist soldiers will be sent back to their jobs in order to help the economy as the country prepares for a prolonged conflict.
These days, we are also adjusting the plan for deployment of forces in Gaza and the engagement of reservists. Some of the reservist soldiers will return to their families and their jobs this week. This will allow a significant relief for the economy and will allow them to gather strength ahead of the coming activities in the new year. And since the fighting will continue, we will need them. These adjustments are meant to ensure planning and preparation for the rest of 2024. The IDF must plan ahead with the understanding that we will be required to undertake more missions, and the fighting is likely to continue throughout this entire year.
Iran's news agency Tasnim reports that the country's Al-Borz warship has passed through the Bab al-Mandab Strait and entered the Red Sea. Earlier, the United States Navy said that it had sunk 3 ships operated by Iran-backed Houthi militants after they fired on a commercial ship in the Red Sea. The U.S. Central Command said 4 boats originating from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen fired at and attempted to board the container vessel. Navy helicopters from the USS Eisenhower and Gravely arrived on the scene and were also shot at, firing back and sinking 3 of the 4 small boats, killing their crews. Denmark's Queen Margaret II announced her abdication in a live television announcement on New Year's Eve. The 83-year-old Queen came to the throne in 1972 and will have served 52 years when she steps down on January 14th. She became the longest-serving monarch in Europe following the death of Britain's Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022. Last year, she became Denmark's longest-reigning monarch. Well, Denmark's Crown Prince Frederik will become king after the abdication of his mother. His ascension to the throne means his wife, Crown Princess Mary, will become queen. The Australian princess hails from the state of Tasmania, where locals expressed their excitement about her new role.
Oh, I think it's wonderful, and puts Tasmania on the world stage, and what a great ambassador for Australia.
I'm very proud. I'm very excited. I think it's wonderful. Yeah. I think she'll make a great queen, don't you?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Proud of her. Yeah, terrific, it's lovely.
Terrific news.
She deserves it. She's lovely. She carries herself extremely well.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited parts of northern Germany hit by floods after days of heavy rain. Scholz began his visit on Sunday with a helicopter flight over the flooded area, accompanied by Lower Saxony's state premier. Visiting Verden on the Aller River, Scholz praised the efforts of the emergency services and local authorities, as well as the solidarity of citizens. Several days of rain and snowmelt left many regions underwater. More rain is expected in the days to come. The Democratic Republic of the Congo's president, Felix Tshisekedi, has been re-elected for a second term following elections on the 20th of December. The official declaration of the result follows days of objections from the opposition about the way the election was conducted. Tshisekedi obtained more than 13 million out of over 18 million valid votes. Cheers erupted from Tshisekedi's supporters attending the declaration after it was announced that Tshisekedi was provisionally elected. Speaking to hundreds who gathered at his campaign headquarters after the announcement, Tshisekedi thanked his supporters and promised that his second term would see an acceleration of efforts to tackle inequality. 6 people have been killed in the Abyei region, which is disputed territory between Sudan and South Sudan. A senior local administrator was among the victims of Sunday's violence. Abyei Deputy Chief Administrator Noon Deng was returning from an official New Year visit in Rumamer County with members of his team when they came under attack. The region has a special administration made up of officials from both Sudan and South Sudan, but it continues to be marred by violence. That's it from me here in London. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Julia. My colleague Julia Chapman joining us all from London. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. A court in Bangladesh has sentenced Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus to 6 months imprisonment for labor law violations. And Taiwan's president says ties with China must be decided by will of the people and peace must be based on dignity.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. India's space agency, ISRO, successfully launched an X-ray polarimeter satellite called XProSat from the launch pad at Sriharikota in the southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh today. This launch marks India's first satellite launch of 2024, and it comes after India's moon mission Chandrayaan-3 and India's sun mission Aditya L1 by ISRO. The XProSat is India's first dedicated polarimetry mission to study the dynamics of bright astronomical X-ray sources in extreme conditions. It is the world's second such mission after the US Space Agency NASA's launch of an imaging X-ray polarimetry explorer in December 2021.
The orbit that has been accomplished, which is available through various routes, it shows excellent orbit, and the deviations from the targeted orbit is hardly just 3 kilometers in circular orbit of 650 kilometer, and inclination is 001 degree, which is one of the very excellent orbital condition. And yet another announcement is the solar panel of the satellite also has been deployed successfully.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed happiness over the successful launch of XProSat satellite by the Indian Space Research Organisation. In a social media post, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, And I quote him here, "A great start to 2024 thanks to our scientists. This launch is wonderful news for the space sector and will enhance India's prowess in this field. Best wishes to our scientists at the Indian Space Research Organization and the entire space fraternity in taking India to unprecedented heights," wrote the Prime Minister. So along with this, Indian Space Agency, ISRO, launched 10 small satellites on Monday, including the Women Engineered Satellite, or the VSAT, developed by the students of Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Technology for Women. VSAT holds the distinction of being India's first satellite crafted entirely by women. The team shared their experiences with DD India's Ritesh Ranjan.
You know, how and what came in your mind to start this project?
After 1 year of brainstorming sessions, we understood that UV radiations in space is an undisclosed area. So we can come out something which will measure UV radiations. That is why we started thinking about this VSAT to measure UV radiations in space.
So how many years it took time, and still what all projects are going on? What challenges you guys have to face?
As you all know, it is a woman-only engineered satellite. So as a woman, we have faced so many constraints based on it, and we have to overcome all of this to bring this to this level. And for this launch, our entire team was here. They were in the view gallery, and while I'm standing here, it's an extremely proudest moment.
India and Pakistan today exchanged through diplomatic channels simultaneously at New Delhi and Islamabad the list of nuclear installations and facilities covered under the agreement on the prohibition of attack against nuclear installations and facilities between India and Pakistan. The agreement, which was signed on 31st December 1988 and entered into force on 27th January 1991, provides, inter alia, that India and Pakistan inform each other of nuclear installations and facilities to be covered under the agreement on the 1st of January of every calendar year. This is the 33rd consecutive exchange of such lists between the two countries, the first one having taken place on January 1st, 1992. Still with Pakistan, the acceptance of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz PMLN Supremo Nawaz Sharif's nomination papers from Lahore's constituency NA 130 for the upcoming general elections next year has been challenged on Monday. According to media reports, Nawaz Sharif's nomination papers have been challenged a week after the Election Commission of Pakistan gave its approval to the candidature of Pakistan's former premier. The constituency's returning officer, the electoral watchdog, and Nawaz Sharif have been made respondents in the case. Earlier, Pakistan's election body also rejected former Prime Minister Imran Khan's nomination for the 2024 national election in 2 constituencies. It also rejected the nomination papers of Imran Khan and most of his supporters. Staying in the region, a Bangladesh court on Monday sentenced Nobel laureate Dr. Muhammad Yunus and 3 top officials of the Grameen Telecom to 6 months jail in a case over the violation of labour law. The court also fined 30,000 takas, that is equivalent to around $270 each, and ordered that in case of default, the convicts would have to suffer 25 more days of simple imprisonment. Responding to petitions submitted by the convicts, the court, however, granted them bail for 1 month. Yunus and his Grameen Bank had won the Peace Prize back in 2006. On to China now. After China's President Xi Jinping vowed reunification with Taiwan in his year-end address, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen said on Monday that the island's relations with China must be decided by the will of the people, and peace must be based on dignity. Asked about Xi's speech, President Tsai said that the most important principle on what course to follow on relations with China was democracy. China has been ramping up military pressure to assert its sovereignty over Taiwan, which on 13th of January holds presidential and parliamentary elections.
What is the future of cross-strait relations?
I think it should be consistent with the principles of democracy. This is taking the joint will of Taiwan's people to make a decision. After all, we are a democratic country. On what course to follow on relations with China have to follow the democratic process.
And next we take a look at what else is happening around the world. Pope Francis on Monday denounced violence against women, speaking in a mass in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City. In November, Italian lawmakers unanimously backed measures to clamp down on violence against women after the killing of a university student. That triggered fresh nationwide debate over the issue. Hundreds of Kosovars rushed to the Pristina airport to travel to the EU countries on Monday after visas for Europe's open borders Schengen zone were waived. Kosovo was the only country in the Western Balkans whose citizens still needed visas to travel to the EU. Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti greeted travelers at the airport. And giant waves and choppy waters in the western U.S. state of California over the weekend prompted evacuation orders amid fears of flooding. In the Manhattan Beach, the pier remained closed as waves as high as 20 feet slammed into the shoreline. The National Weather Service in the Los Angeles forecast significant flooding in low-lying coastal areas with powerful waves. So the world welcomed 2024 with a mix of celebration and a somber reflection as well. From New York to Auckland, from London to Dubai, millions around the world joined in the festivities. Take a look.
As the clock struck midnight around the globe, the world united in joyous celebration and heartfelt reflection, bidding farewell to the old and embracing the promise of a new year. From the stunning shores of Sydney, where silver and gold fireworks adorned the night sky, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the iconic Opera House. To the heart of Auckland, New Zealand, where the first fireworks of 2024 illuminated the cloudy night, accompanied by a mesmerizing laser light and animation show. Down to the vibrant beaches of Rio de Janeiro, where a dazzling 12-minute spectacular lit up Copacabana. 2 million revelers welcomed the new year with a first-of-its-kind light and color show, harmonized with a live orchestra. London's Big Ben echoed through the city, joined by a breathtaking fireworks display and a visual journey through the year's highlights. While on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, hundreds of thousands, including international tourists, celebrated the new year with grandeur, culminating in a traditional fireworks display over the majestic Arc of Triumph. The skyline of Dubai transformed into a canvas of light as the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest skyscraper, hosted a mesmerizing fireworks show, drawing thousands to witness the spectacle. Meanwhile, in Ras Al Khaimah, another dazzling display unfolded.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Across continents, as fireworks painted the skies and joy echoed in the hearts of millions, the world collectively embraced 2024, offering a hopeful start and a promise of brighter days ahead.
Indeed, may 2024 bring you all the joy and success and the courage to face whatever life has to offer. With those New Year greetings, we wind up this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. I am Tanvi Taneja. From my entire team in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.